The anime begins in a magical world called Hawkaginia, at the Tri-Stain Academy for Magicians, where Louise de la Valliere goes to class on her first day as a second-year student. Her teacher asks her to perform a simple spell, turning pebbles into brass. Although her classmates mock her with the nickname Zero, as soon as she casts the spell, the room explodes. Despite being from a famous family of magicians, Louise has a 0% success rate in casting spells. On the day of the familiar summoning ceremony, Kirchi summons a fire salamander, Guiche summons Verdandi, a large mole, but Louise summons a human being, Saito Arata from Tokyo, Japan, who cannot understand what Louise is saying. Louise is disappointed but cannot break the tradition of the ritual, so she makes a contract with Saito by kissing him, and runes appear on his left hand. Louise tries to silence him by casting a silence spell that goes wrong and allows Saito to speak and understand Louise's language. Saito thinks he has been kidnapped until he sees the two moons in the sky and realizes he is in another world. Saito now has to deal with the role of Louise's familiar, often being whipped for being disobedient. In the morning, he helps Louise dress before they go to breakfast, where Saito only receives a piece of bread. It is there that he meets a kind maid named Siesta. Dissatisfied with the noble's arrogance around him, Saito mocks the fickle nature of Guiche, one of the nobles, which leads Guiche to challenge him to a duel. Despite being severely beaten by the brass golem summoned by Guiche, Saito refuses to back down. Impressed by Saito's determination, Guiche throws him a sword to give him a chance. Surprisingly, the runes engraved on Saito's hand begin to glow as soon as he touches the sword. This enhances his strength and speed, as well as giving him exceptional sword skills, allowing him to easily defeat Guiche. However, shortly after the fight, Saito faints from fatigue. Mr. Colbert and director Osmond, witnesses to the fight, suspect that Saito may be a legendary familiar, an extremely powerful and rare magical creature. With his victory over Guiche, a nobleman from the Tri-Stain Magic Academy, Saito has gained the admiration not only of the commoners, but also of many nobles. The commoners now affectionately call him our sword, recognizing his ability and courage. However, not everything is rosy for Saito, as his master, Louise, is punishing him by withholding his food, forcing him to rely on siestas and the commoners' kindness to eat. During this time, Saito discovers why Louise is called Zero, a reference to her supposed failure to perform common magics among the nobles. While dealing with these issues, Saito finds himself caught in a new dilemma when Kirchi, a German noble known for her beauty and charm, decides he will be her next romantic target. Kirchi devises a cunning plan to seduce Saito, taking advantage of her reputation as a seductress. However, her efforts are thwarted when Louise discovers her intentions. The situation becomes even more complicated when Louise, recognizing Sato's talent with the sword, decides to gift him with a proper weapon. To compete with Louise's gift, Kirchi offers Saito an even more impressive sword, which creates a conflict of interest between Saito and Louise. This extravagant gift from Kirchi puts Saito in an uncomfortable position, forcing him to deal not only with the tensions between Louise and Kirchi, but also with his own feelings and loyalties. It is in this context that the true nature of Louise's sword is revealed, a powerful sword known as Derflinger, the talking sword. Osmond continues to harass his secretary Longueville. Siesta is forced to serve Count Mott as his mistress. Disgusted with the noble's lack of consideration for the commoners, Saito tries to rescue her. They make a deal in which Count Mott asks for a specific family book from a Germania family. Coincidentally, it is Kirchi's family, who was summoned from another world. Saito asks Kirchi for the book, but Kirchi wants him to date her. After refusing her demand, Saito tries to confront Count Mott with Kirchi's expensive sword, but his runes do not activate, as it is an ornamental sword not intended for combat, and he struggles to lift it. Louise and the others arrive in time to prevent Saito from being executed. Kirchi agrees to give Count Mott the book in exchange for Siesta's freedom and forgiveness for Saito for his offense. Saito takes a look at the family book and is surprised to find it is just an old pornographic magazine from Japan. After returning to the academy, Siesta kisses Saito on the cheek in gratitude for his efforts. The exhibition of the new familiars is a day away, and Louise is feeling quite depressed about it. Not only does Saito have nothing impressive to show, but this year the Princess of Tri-Stain will be present, making the event more important. As the night approaches, hopelessness sets in as Saito fails to produce an act worthy of praise. A visitor in Louise's room turns out to be Princess Henrietta herself, who explains how she and Louise are childhood friends. The next day, Saito performs a weak demonstration of sword strikes, only to be dragged off stage by Louise. They witness Fouquet, the sculptor, attempting to break into the school's treasure vault using an earth golem. Louise Louise tries to stop her with her magic, but her blast misses the golem and hits the tower wall, breaking the magical barrier of the vault. Tabitha and her dragon familiar, Sylphid, fly to help, but arrive too late to prevent Fouquet from stealing the legendary Staff of Destruction and escaping. Worried that the princess might be blamed for Fouquet's theft, Louise volunteers to go and capture her. Kerchi and Tabitha volunteer as well. They travel to Fouquet's last sighting location, escorted by Longueville. Kerchi, Tabitha, and Saito enter an empty house where Tabitha discovers the hidden Staff of Destruction. Fouquet's golem appears outside. Louise tries to fight the golem with some spells, but fails. When she is about to be crushed, Saito rushes to save her. With her confidence shattered, Louise starts to cry. Saito is touched by this and attacks the golem alone, while Sylphid rescues the nobles. He uses Kerchi's sword, but it breaks upon contact with the golem. Durflinger asks Saito to use it. Saito draws Durflinger, and the runes on his hands glow again. He manages to cut off the golem's legs, but they regenerate. Louise tries to help using the Staff of Destruction, which Saito recognizes as an M72 rocket launcher, and with his rune-enabled abilities, he fires at the golem and destroys it. In the end, Longueville claims the staff and reveals herself to be Fouquet all along. She engineered the scenario to figure out how to use the staff. She tries to kill the students with the staff, but nothing happens, as rocket launchers are one-time use weapons. Saito knocks out Fouquet. Later, Osmond reveals that 30 years ago, he was fighting a monster when a man from another world used one of the two staffs to save his life. After the man died, Osmond buried the man and kept the remaining staff. The school holds a ball to celebrate, where Louise asks Saito to dance with her and thanks him for saving her. Henrietta congratulates Louise for capturing Fouquet. She reaches out to Saito, but Saito misunderstands and kisses her on the lips. Henrietta asks Louise and Saito to work undercover to determine if the nobles are taking advantage of the commoners. Louise innocently loses all their money in a casino where she hoped to increase their funds. Refusing to ask Henrietta for more money, Saito and Louise find work at an inn called Charming Fairy Inn, run by Scarra and his daughter, Jessica. Louise works as a waitress and Saito as a dishwasher, where he is in close contact with Jessica. Much to Louise's dismay, Scarra holds a contest for the waitresses. Whoever receives the most tips wins a big reward, plus the chance to wear a special-made uniform. Louise fails to earn tips because of her temper until an arrogant nobleman enters the bar. After delivering justice to him, the nobleman flees, but leaves a large bribe for Louise. The tip allows Louise to win the contest. Even though they now have to leave, Louise wears the special-made uniform just for him. It's summer, and many students are traveling back to their families after the school term. Kerchi decides to accompany Tabitha home, providing a moment of privacy for Louise and Saito. During the journey, Kerchi discovers a deep secret about Tabitha. Her real name is Charlotte, and she is the Princess of Gallia. Charlotte carries with her a tragic past, in which her mother went mad after consuming a potion. Charlotte's return mission to her home turns out to be a charge from her uncle, the King of Gallia. Meanwhile, Montmorency becomes upset upon realizing that Goethe is flirting with other girls. Determined to win him over, she prepares a love potion, an aphrodisiac, and secretly tries to add it to Guiche's drink. On the other hand, Saito finds a large pot that was about to be discarded and turns it into an improvised bathtub, similar to those in his homeland, Japan. At night, he relaxes in the bathtub when Siesta, one of the castle maids, passes by and decides to join him, causing great embarrassment to the young man. Meanwhile, Louise, witnessing the closeness between Saito and Siesta, becomes frustrated and ends up interrupting Goethe and Montmorency. By accident, she ends up consuming the drink with the love potion. When Saito returns to the room where Louise is staying, she becomes confused and ends up falling madly in love with him. Louise continued to demonstrate her affection for Saito in an exaggerated manner, which made him uncomfortable and resulted in a misunderstanding with Siesta. Desperate to resolve the situation, Saito demanded that Montmorency create an antidote for Louise's loving behavior. However, Montmorency initially refused to help, as Saito had learned from Siesta that potions that altered emotions were illegal. Faced with Montmorency's refusal, Saito resorted to blackmail, threatening to reveal her secret if she did not cooperate. Montmorency then agreed to help, but with one condition: the antidote required a tear from a water elemental. With Guiche's help, Montmorency led Saito and Louise to Lake Lagdorian, where they believed they would find the water spirit. They discovered that the lake was being flooded, as the water spirit was searching for its stolen treasure, but was being prevented by magic users. Saito volunteered to deal with the intruders, who turned out to be Kerchi and Tabitha. In a fierce battle, Saito and Goichi manage to defeat them, promising the water spirit to find and return its lost treasure. With the promise fulfilled, the water spirit, trusting Sato's word as Gandalf, granted him the long-awaited antidote. Taking care of the love potion, Louise and Saito receive a new mission. To strengthen the alliance of their country, Princess Henrietta must marry the Emperor of Germania. Louise and Saito must retrieve a compromising letter that Henrietta wrote to Prince Wales of Albion, or the marriage will be cancelled. The princess cannot see the prince in person because Albion is in a state of civil war. Goichi overhears the conversation and volunteers to help the princess, which Henrietta accepts, to the surprise of Louise and Saito. Before leaving, Saito learns about Gandalf and the legendary void magic from Colbert, as well as a story about two dragons. On the day of departure, their escort, Wards, captain of the Griffin squad, arrives. It turns out he is also Louise's fiancé, and Saito becomes jealous of him. Later, Derflinger talks to Saito about Gandalf and how only a Gandalf can wield Derflinger. Wards proposes to Louise then, at dinner, asks Saito to fight him. Wards easily wins and mocks Sato's promise to protect Louise, leaving Saito depressed. That night, Louise and Wards board the ship after convincing her that Goichi and Saito have returned home. He persists in his courtship, and Louise accepts his proposal. In reality, the boys were delayed by the sudden appearance of Fouquet and her golem. They are saved by Kerchi and Tabitha, who arrive on Sylphid. Saito learns that Wards and Fouquet were working together and Louise is in danger. Wards and Louise arrive in Albion, the floating continent, where they meet Prince Wales. Louise delivers the letter, then Wales gives her a reply letter that she must retrieve and discovers the power behind the noble rebellion in Albion, the Reconquista. Their mission supposedly completed, Wards insists they marry in Albion. He reveals himself as a member of the Reconquista and is a threat to Wales. Louise tries to refuse, but one of Ward's allies, Cromwell, arrives with the stolen water spirit's ring and forces her to consent using mind control. The wedding proceeds with Wales officiating and is nearly completed when Saito bursts into the church and snaps Louise out of her trance. The wedding ceremony is ruined. Wards kills Wales, steals Louise's letter, and tries to kill Saito. However, Ward's treatment of Louise angers Saito, and he is able to unlock his Gandalf abilities and fully use Derflinger. He defeats Ward's magic, who flees but not before collapsing the church on Louise and Saito. They are rescued by Tabitha and the others, and Sylphid takes everyone home. Saito, holding Louise in his arms, kisses her. Louise informs Henrietta of Wales's death, and the princess's marriage is cancelled. Louise also warns Osmond about the Reconquista. Osmond then tells her about void magic and Gandalf. After another argument with Louise, Saito accompanies Siesta to her hometown of Talbis to find a dragon. Louise and the others follow them and locate the rare dragon, which Siesta's family keeps as a relic. Saito finds a gravestone with a Japanese epitaph on it. The dragon turns out to be an A6M0 fighter plane, a Japanese aircraft. It is revealed that Siesta's great-grandfather was a pilot in the Imperial Japanese Navy in World War II, and that he was magically transported to Hokaginia just like Saito was. Colbert explains that two dragons flew during a solar eclipse, but one disappeared. He suggests that the timing of the second pilot was wrong, and that the solar eclipse ended before the second pilot could fly through the portal. Saito concludes that the other pilot returned home, and this is his chance to return home too. As they bring the plane back to the school, Albion declares war on Tristane, wanting to use the country as a base to conquer the rest of the continent, and plans to launch their attack in 3 days during the next solar eclipse. Saito tells Louise that he wants to go home during the next solar eclipse and gets angry when she acts like she doesn't care. A war between Albion and Tristane is considered inevitable. Henrietta gathers a military force that conscripts the boys from the academy. Louise enters the room and finds a sleeping Saito, at which point she says her goodbye. The next morning, Saito wakes up and finds a letter in which Louise said he was fired. Louise decides to join the princess in the war. Saito gets into his Zero fighter while Henrietta advances with Tristane's army to intercept Albion's invading force in Talbis village. Instead of flying directly to the eclipse, Saito attacks Albion's dragon squadrons, which cannot keep up with the plane's speed. Saito runs out of bullets and is attacked by Wards on a wind dragon. Louise jumps from Sylphid to Sato's plane. Tabitha, Kerchi, and Guiche together destroy Fouquet's golem, and Fouquet flees for good. Thinking Saito might be injured, Louise finally connects with Saito and unlocks her void magic for the first time, casting a powerful spell known as Explosion, which destroys all of Albian's air force, including wards. After the battle, with the solar eclipse past and the Zero fighter almost destroyed, Saito and Louise sit near the wreckage of the plane, where they have another argument and end up kissing. Elsewhere, Cromwell tries to hypnotize Kerchi and Tabitha with the Anvari's ring, but Guiche knocks him out. Later, the four nobles are awarded medals by Henrietta, and Tabitha receives the water spirit's ring to fulfill the promise of returning it. Louise is so excited about her medal that she runs to show it to Saito, only to find him talking to Siesta. In her typical overreaction, Louise punishes Saito, thus closing the first season of The Familiar of Zero. That was today's content. We hope you enjoyed it. Remember to share the video, leave your like, and stay tuned for the next video. Take care.